The Dateable podcast is an insider's look into modern dating that the Huffington Post calls one of the top 10 podcasts about love and sex. On each episode, we'll talk to real daters about everything from sex parties to sex droughts, date fails to diaper fetishes, and first moves to first loves. I'm your host, Yue Xu, former dating coach turned dating sociologist. You'll also hear from my co-host and producer, Julie Krafchick, as we explore this crazy dateable world. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Dateable, a show all about modern dating where we dig into the whys of people's behavior. And this is our season finale. Not only is it season finale for season 11, it's also our last season of 2020.
2020 has finally come to an end, or it's about to come to an end.
Like, get the fuck out of here, 2020. Make room for 2021.
I feel like there's literally no New Year's plans this year because we can't have any, but also everyone's like, fuck this year. But I guess that would be maybe grounds to celebrate the new one, but also we don't know what's around the corner on January 1st. Probably not much change.
Initially. I know. My friend was saying the same thing. He's like, 2021, exact same shit as 2020.
Yeah. We're just used to it now. It's not a surprise anymore. There's hope on the horizon. I feel like the flex of 2021 on dating profiles is going to be if you got the vaccine or not. Total
Exactly. The news of 2021 is the vaccine, and I think that's going to change quite a bit of our lives for that year. So yes, we're still looking forward to the new year, but we're very much looking forward to this episode because it is our season finale. It's our yearly finale. It's such a groundbreaking episode because we've been having this conversation forever. It's all about, can you have it all? Can you have it all? Or do you have to sacrifice a part of your life for another aspect of your life? Like, for example, can you have a very successful career, but you kind of suffer on a personal note? Or can you have a really successful relationship, but suffer maybe professionally? So this is kind of like the question it's $1 million question. Mm-hmm. Can you have it all? And our guest for this episode proves that, yes, you fucking can.
And she's also Yue's idol / Yue in a later life. There's so many parallels between you two. I'm like, wait, are we hearing from Mei Lee is her name?
Yes.
Or are we hearing from Yue right now? Because I'm very confused at this weird time warp of the two of you.
Would be very honored if I were Mei, a few years into the future. Mei is a world-renowned journalist, and she's also just a fucking badass woman.
She's amazing. I loved her because you did her podcast, The Mei Lee Show, and you were like, it's all about representing Asian Americans, which is amazing too. Was it Asian Americans in media? Is that what it's focused on?
Or just Asians.
And everywhere.
The billions
Clearly,
of us.
I sat this one out, but I remember you. I literally got off the phone with Mei for the interview, and you were like, "We need to have her on the podcast. She is amazing." And I think also, we're a big part of it too is normalizing being single in your 50s. And I think that's something that's been, world-renowned wisdom. I saw this thing on TikTok the other day. So clearly,
oh my gosh, Julie,
I don't even know. I'm such a lurker on TikTok. I don't even do anything. I just lurk on there at night. But
that sounds so creepy. I just lurk on TikTok looking at 17-year-olds dance at night.
Hey, I was not looking at 17-year-olds dancing.
They were 18.
But I actually have no idea who said this, so I don't know who to give credit to, but someone was like, okay, we have to stop with this self-love for single people, that you need to fix yourself in order to have a relationship. And I was like, fuck yeah. I feel like we are always talking about self-love, and I do think people should have self-love, and I don't think it's exclusive for single people or people in relationships, but I do agree with this premise of you need to love yourself before you can love someone else. To some degree, there's some truth in it, but it also, I feel like you need to be doing that if you're in a relationship and you've been in a relationship since college also.
Yes, that's a very good point, because this whole time, the propaganda has been, you have to love yourself to prep yourself to love someone, right? But why does it have to be in preparation of a relationship? Why can't you just love yourself in preparation of loving yourself by yourself, And it doesn't need to be about making yourself better so that you're more dateable.
Yeah, and the reality is you're going to be single or alone at some point of your life, even if you're not single per se. Like my mom, I've been at my parents' house for anyone that's new through the holidays, and my dad leaves during the pandemic to go to work, and my mom has been by herself. So it's like, yes, she's in a couple, but you're still on your own in some way. Like you're never with someone 24/7. Like you need to have these skills, whether you're in a relationship or not.
Yeah, so I guess the end goal is not about getting into a relationship. The end goal is finding that relationship with yourself where you care and love who you are. And then you're able to spread that love with other people.
Yeah.
That's like an after fact. But this is like, this is what this episode is really about, because May, she is really put her career as priority for many years. I mean, she had a booming career. She's traveled the world, but not that she's given up relationships. She's also been in a series of long relationships. But her whole motto is, I'd rather be alone and thriving on my own than be with someone who's dragging me down and not letting me blossom and not motivating me or inspiring me. So this is why she's in her 50s and single, and she has not been married or has had kids, and no fucking regrets. This is like the question we've always had. We're like, am I going to regret this in like 20 years, 30 years, whatever it may be when I'm in my 50s and 60s? She's like, no, I never predicted this. I did not plan this for myself, but I have no regrets because all the decisions I made in my life were my decisions. I had control over them.
Right. Well, that was the whole piece about normalizing being single. That's what made me think of this revelation from TikTok. But it was like, the reason you're single might not be because there's something broken with you. It's like the reason could be that you've just prioritized other things in your life.
Right.
And I know for a while for myself, like I feel like I didn't really start like really dating till like late 20s. Like, of course, like through college and like early 20s, I had the flings and like just people that came in and boyfriends and whatnot, but it wasn't like an active dating because there was so much of just getting like my own career in order, moving to a new city, building a life. Like, it's not like you can't do it. You just haven't like pushed that way.
And that's why our podcast, we have so many listeners who are in relationships, who are married, because dating is not just about being single. Dating is also about being comfortable with yourself, dating yourself, and knowing how to take care of yourself. You know, I think that, like you were saying, we're not going to be with someone else like 24/7 all the time. And you can't predict the future, but you can only predict that you're going to be with yourself.
Right.
all
and
the time.
Like, of course, I think the like, can you have it all is the $1 million question. But we do also talk in this episode too about like this feeling of that you're never, even if you're alone, you're never alone. We actually did a series of holiday happy hours as part of the sounding board this week. And one of our members, Caitlin, she like posted that, I guess that was like a quote she had during the happy hour, that like with this group, she never feels alone. And I was like, oh, that just brings so much
sweet.
more. Another thing that they did that was just so adorable is apparently went around and like shared all what everyone loved about each other to like build everyone up. And I was like, this is literally the best group of people ever. I know.
Insane.
So,
I love them.
But never alone. I think that's really true. And it's like, especially during this pandemic, it has pushed us. Like a lot of us, like I know a lot of people in the group too, like moved to a new city. Like that's gotta be hard being single, but like you can find those people. And I think with May too, it's like sometimes you and I've talked about this. It's like, okay, right now, maybe it's okay to be like single or, not like having children or whatever it is, but will we regret this in like 20 years? And I think like hearing her say that, I'm like, first of all, you just can't predict the future. Like I would never have even known that I'd be here today, So it's like
in your parents' basement.
Well, I meant doing the podcast, but yes. That I could have predicted because I was here 20 years ago.
Full circle.
Full circle. But I think it's like also like it points out too, it's like I mean, I love being in relationships. Some of my best times and memories have been in a relationship, but I also love being single. Like I feel like I have the opportunity to focus on different things. Like if I had children, like I do believe you can have a thriving career and have kids, but I realistically probably wouldn't have the amount of time that I do to put towards this podcast, for instance. And like you probably wouldn't either. It's just like the reality society is like there's always trade-offs with everything. And like, you know, there's no right or wrong. It's kind of like what is working for you, and things can change at different times too.
And not being tied to some sort of outcome. It's not the whole, I need to get married. I need to have kids. I need to have this career where I'm made SVP by the time I'm 35 or whatever these are. These are sort of things that are not in your control, but what is in your control is you can say, I want a life where I feel fulfilled, where I feel motivated, inspired, a life where I feel like I'm loved and that I can give love to other people. I think those are things that are tangible and in your control. And that's sort of May's philosophy. But what is even more wonderful about our conversation with May, because we recorded this a few months ago, and May recently emailed us with an update, and she's like, guess what? This is just like the craziest thing, because she wasn't looking for relationships. She was kind of like, if it happens, it happens. But
especially right now.
Especially right now. I'm very happy. She's got 2 lovely dogs. She's like having a great time. And she went on OkCupid after our conversation because she was curious. And we had talked about how during the pandemic, there was more activity with online dating, and ended up meeting someone. And now they're in a serious relationship. When she emailed this to me, this was in October. They had been together for 3 months. So it's been 5 months now.
Amazing.
Incredible. And she's been posting photos of them like cooking together and celebrating together. But it's not something she was like, I must have this in my life. But it's wonderful that she was able to find someone.
Right. We always say, like, if you're in a good place yourself, like you either like are happy, right? Even if you don't meet someone, or you attract someone at the same energy level because you're in a good place. So I'm sure like that was how it worked for her. And I think this is amazing. I mean, this is what happens when you come on Dateable. So I know the guests are going to be lining up now for season 12. We just unleashed.
Who's next?
Our inbox becomes flooded tomorrow. This is the way, guys. We
become the relationship setters. We're just setting up that ball for you. Yes, exactly. So I think what's, this episode is not about like, hooray, being single, like single people empowerment, because I'm also sick of that message too. This is about finding a life and creating a life where you feel fulfilled. And that doesn't need to be tied to these outcomes that society tells you about.
Right.
It's about what you create for yourself.
You know what I'm so sick of? Can I just rant for 1 second? Like, I hate that. Why do we even have to call like single people and people in relationships? Like, why does there have to even be this divide? I just want to be friends with people regardless of their relationship status. Like, I want people to just view me as a person regardless of mine. Like, why does this even have to define us in any way? Like it pisses me off. And I feel like that's like what makes things like the way they are, because we have these like binary ways of like, like segregating us essentially.
Well, that's how the media can sell their TV shows and their movies. That's how these brands can sell their services and their products, because there has to be a divide and there has to be a me versus you. But I agree. And that's why I love this community we created with Dateable. My friend Drea, who Drea, said the other day, because she's now in a relationship with someone who's on our podcast before.
We may or may not have them at some future time.
We gotta have them back. And she said, I didn't know that the Facebook group was for people in relationships too. I'm like, it's for everyone. Anybody who cares about love is for everyone. And she also felt that divide, from the way she was talking about it. It was like, oh, I thought it was for single people only. No, we don't want to live in a world like that where it's like, oh, it's for these sort of people only. No, it's for everyone. For everyone. Love transcends everybody.
Right. And if you I'm like, how do I segue this?
Are you segueing to merch?
Yeah, I am. I was like
and if you love merch,
it's like, well, I was gonna say whether you're in a relationship or not. One of our best friends, she bought Master Dating, and she has been married for like 10 years and has a child. So, no, I don't think she's actually been married for 10 years, but she's been with her significant other for like 10 years.
Yes.
But she bought that Dateable cup and Master Dating mug. So, but I think quarantine from fuckboys, regardless if you're taken, single, whatever. I don't want to use these words anymore, but everyone could be quarantined for fuckers.
I love that my friend bought why. He's married, but he is like, I just love that sweatshirt that says why, because he can take all his Zoom meetings, and if someone asks him a question, he'll just show them the sweatshirt. He doesn't need to say anything.
I never even thought about that. But so another reason we are going to, because we are finally leaving 2020, we are going to be doing a blowout sale to kind of end some of our merch that is going to get discontinued in 2020. So if there's something you've been eyeing for a bit, this is the time to get it. We will be giving a 21% discount.
That's right. For 2021. Get it?
So the discount code is going to be SHOP21. So definitely make sure you get on it and get that merch before it goes out so you can be dateable regardless of your relationship status.
There you go. 21% off. It's a lot. That's quite a lot. A lot more than 20%.
Is on our Black, it's even more than 1% beyond our Black Friday sale.
There you go. Our biggest sale ever. That's how they always sell you.
And then our other quick announcement, I think just one thing to clarify, just we have the Facebook group, Love in the Time of Corona Facebook group, that is free. And we do ask though that you give us a little blurb about yourself, just because we want to make sure you're a real person. We don't know who's listening all the time, and it's a safe space, so we want to make sure that people that are legit and not just randoms on the internet are coming in. So if you have been not approved and this was a mistake, it is not because we don't love you. It's because you did not give us enough information. So come back, fill out that information, and you can come in. And then we also have the Sounding Board group, which is our premium community. And that's where all the magic happens. That's where we have the happy hours, the podcast discussion groups. We also have the audio series available. That's a special audio series just for Sounding Board members, and there's a discussion group. The December episode we released is about navigating ambiguity, which honestly could not be coming at a better time. And let's be honest, there's still going to be ambiguity coming into January. So the beauty too is even if you join now, you get the episodes from November and December, which will be automatically delivered to your Apple Podcast feed. So if you're not a member of the Sounding Board yet, you can go to dateablepodcast.com/sounding board. So definitely want to get on it. We have so many good things for 2021. Wow, it has a good ring to it. 2021.
2021. There you go. And I know that we want to get to this episode, but it's our last episode for the year. So we're going to talk a bit longer. Okay, fuck it. We're going to do it because we got to talk about the would you rather question from last week. It was all around honesty because our episode with Jared Freed was about why is it so hard to be honest when it comes to dating and relationships, and how can we just be more honest with other people and ourselves. So the would you rather was, if you are dating someone and you're really into them and they decide that they wanted to pursue someone else that they've been seeing, would you rather hear the truth, or would you rather hear them say, I'm just not in a place to date right now? And this is the first time where the results on Facebook and in our Instagram were the exact same.
Wow.
So everyone was on the same page. But
I purposely don't look because I want to make sure that I am staying unbiased. I think it might depend when it is in the relationship. Like when it is. Like if I've literally had like one video date from them, I don't need that much honesty. Like if I don't even know them at all. But if I've been dating them for a bit and I would much rather just hear that there's someone else, even though that might hurt. I've definitely been here before. I've been here on the receiving end and the giving end. So the receiving end, one of like my first, I would say, relationships, I'm kind of air quoting because it was never like fully official. It was like, one of those situationships, but it was like 6 months-ish. And I was really crazy about this guy. Like I really liked him. I don't even know if I've ever told you about him, Yue, because he way far was before you and I met. Oh,
it's before my time? Oh.
Way before your time.
Okay, and he doesn't exist.
Was like,
in my mind, he does not exist.
This was like right when I moved to there was this guy. I was like really into this guy. We met on Match.com. That's how outdated it is. And anyways, we had this 6 months. It was like kind of like on his terms type of thing. And I finally got the courage to like put it all out there and be like, I really want to date you. Like, I'm really like into you. And he basically was like, he was basically like, oh, like I really like you, but like, I just haven't had a relationship since I was like in college. I'm not really like looking for a relationship. I'm not a relationship type of guy, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay. And I still, of course, had that like glimmer of hope. And then what do I see like a month later is like a photo with him and a girl at House of Prime Rib, which is like...
Fuck. A House of Prime Rib?
House of Prime Rib. So it's clearly not just like, you know... Yeah. So for anyone not in SF, it's like this really... like institutional restaurant. You don't just go there with a random person. It was
you don't
like
take a Tinder date.
It was his birthday, and she like got him like it was clearly they were dating. Okay, this was like a month later, so I'm like, obviously there was an overlap, you know, like the whole thing. And I just remember seeing this photo on Facebook, and like my heart like just sunk seeing that, because I'm like, here's me like still holding out hope for this dude. It would have been so much better if he was just like, hey, like I met someone else that I really click with, you know, like yeah. So anyways, that's harsh.
Heartbreaking.
I have also been on the other side where I had a stalker. I don't know if I've ever even shared this with you either. This was also before your time.
Why are you telling me all this now? All this new information.
I feel like I repressed some of it. But I had this guy that just like wouldn't, like we slept together once, and it was like, he was just, it was like all on, and I was like not interested at all. It just was not good. There were other reasons even before sleeping together. It just wasn't a fit. And I made the mistake of not being honest and telling him that I was in a relationship. Like I met someone else, which was not true. I was not in a relationship. And he didn't stop bothering me. He was just like, well, I'm sure it will end soon and I'll be here. It was just like constantly like there. And it just eventually I had to be like, even if I'm not in a relationship, like I don't want to be with you. Like it was like, it had to be so honest. So I should have just been honest from day one. So both of these are a very long-winded way of saying I would definitely choose the honesty, because it's bit me in the butt both times from both directions.
You know, it's so you're in a majority. 95% of people chose honesty and 5% chose the little white lie. My problem with the statement of I'm just not in a place to date right now is that it doesn't close the door completely.
Exactly.
And that's really hurt me in the past, where someone said that to me or have said something along the lines of that. And then I just think, then it becomes the waiting game for me. I'm like, oh, so not right now, as in today, but maybe tomorrow. And then I start creating excuses for them, like, oh, because they're going through transition at work, or it's because they're doing this and they're dealing with family. But once this whole thing blows over, they're going to be ready for a relationship. What they're really trying to say is, I'm not in a place to date you. It's not about their own timing.
And even if they aren't, like, I think I've learned this the hard way too. It's like, it almost doesn't matter what the reason is.
Yeah,
like the reality is they're not. And like, you kind of do have to cut that cord. And like, if it truly is meant to be, you'll find your way back at some point, but you can't be there like literally having that glimmer of hope that things are going to change, or you just never meet anyone else. I mean, I've learned that by far the hard way.
Absolutely. And in my experience and in all of our interviews with our guests and listening to our Facebook group, you kind of want to find a way to close the door.
Oh yeah.
I think this is like the cardinal rule of dating. Close that damn door. If that door is still left a little bit open, just a little crack, you're always going to hope that it just fully opens for some magical reason. And the same thing in the reverse is that you always want to close the door with people you're not interested in either. Like, why string them along? There is really no need. And karma is a bitch. If you string someone else along, you're going to get strung along.
Yeah. No, I mean, that situation I told you with that guy that like kept hitting me up, even though I said I was in a relationship, like he wasn't giving up, and it was just bad on both fronts. Like, I should have said it. But do you know how the other guy finally closed the door? I mean, outside of this photo of Prime Rib, this is so fucked up. You're going to die. So I think he sent me an email and was like, hey, like, I have a friend that I want to set you up with. Like, do you want a double date? And I was like, okay, we've like slept together multiple times. Like, this is weird. And I mean, like, I who knows? I could have missed out on my soulmate, but it was still, it was too weird for me. I was like, no.
What the fuck? You're like, so is he cute?
So all these years later, is he still single?
Yeah,
That's the
yeah. What's his
question.
deal now? Wow, that's like kick you while you're down. Holy
I
shit.
know. Like
would
I wasn't
hate
even
that.
over it. And then he's like sends me the email. I'm like, glimmer of hope. He's back. And then he's like, I have someone to set you up with. I'm like, how could it get even worse?
Oh, that is the worst feeling because afterwards you feel like a fucking fool.
Yeah.
I hate that feeling when it comes to dating. It's like feeling like a fool after the
Yes.
fact. And you're like,
Yes.
oh, why couldn't I see? I saw all the signs. Why didn't I act on it? It makes you feel dumb. I hate that feeling.
But I think his was coming from guilt. But we could go into a whole scenario another day. We need to get to Mei Lee, so we'll pause it for now. That is like a whole unpacking in itself.
Let's unpack that for the new year for sure. But okay. But yes, let's take a break right now for a special message from our sponsor, BetterHelp. For the new year, what are some things you like to change in your life to find more happiness? What do you think is preventing you from achieving your goals? Well, the simple answer is prioritizing your mental health. We at Dateable, Julie and I, are huge fans of therapy, and BetterHelp can match you with your own licensed therapist and connect you in a safe and private online environment. I was able to start communicating with my therapist in less than 48 hours. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, and it's more affordable than traditional offline counseling. Their licensed professionals specialize in everything from stress, New Year's resolutions, anxiety, trauma, depression, and grief. And for the new year, we wish for all of you to live a happier, healthier life. That's why, as a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting our sponsor at betterhelp.com/dateable. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/dateable, DATEABLE. Okay, now let's get to the one and only Mei Lee. You know, there is a huge difference between being alone and being lonely. And I think a lot of people, especially during this time, are alone. They're living alone, they're single, they're by themselves. But that is more of a physical factor as opposed to a mentality. So I think for this episode, we want to decipher the difference between what is alone and what is being lonely. So Mei, my girl crush, as I start to blush here, it was so fun being on your show talking about dating during this time. And at the end of your show, we started talking about your love life. And it's just, to me, I called Julie right away. I was like, okay, we need to talk about this with Mei right now.
You're building it up way too much. Now everybody's going to be like, oh my God, she must have a salacious love life.
Ooh, well, they're not wrong. A little background information on who is Mei Lee. She lives in Long Beach, originally from Ohio. She's 54 years old, currently pretty single, taking a dating sabbatical. And we want to really dive into the choices that she's made as an independent, single woman. But before we get to the present Mei Lee, let's just go back a little bit. Let's go back to when you were 25 years old. Give us a snapshot of your life, especially your love life at 25 years old.
That's actually a good place to start, Yue. It's almost like you kind of knew, but I don't know how you would have known. At 25, I was already kind of starting my broadcast career as a news journalist. And at that time, I had coincidentally gone back to my hometown, Dayton, Ohio, to work as a reporter anchor for a local news station. And, life was going okay. And I actually was dating somebody pretty seriously at the time. And I was 25. At 26, I was then given an opportunity to go overseas for the first time as an international correspondent. And that came out of the blue. And this guy, funnily enough, you guys, this is weird. I literally got a text message from him about 20 minutes ago.
Oh my God. No. He knew we were going to be doing this.
What?
It's weird. Now, he's on and off kept in touch with me a little bit, but again, this is 30 years ago, right?
Wow.
What does he want?
He just wants to keep in touch.
Exes are coming out of the woodwork right now. This is like the time.
Yue, I told her on my show that during the height of COVID, I had 4 exes contact me in a span of 2 weeks of over 4 decades of my
Wow.
life, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. It was just
Damn.
hilarious. This guy was from my 20s. And so the reason I say this is because when I accepted this job to go to Japan, he was so desperate to keep a hold of me somehow that he had gone out and bought a ring. And apparently he was going to propose to me like 2 nights before I was literally going to get on a plane and move to Tokyo, Japan.
Wait, were you guys like broken up at this time, or were you still gonna keep it going?
We were going to try to keep it going, but I mean, at that stage of my life and career, I was kind of already looking ahead saying, man, what's going to happen? So the last thing I was thinking about was getting engaged and having a long distance engagement. Well, he had other ideas. And so he had literally bought a ring. He had this night planned out, and then we got into a huge fight before the night even came.
Oh.
Almost as if the universe stepped in and was like, nope, this ain't
don't do it. Don't do it.
Wait, how did you know he had a ring?
He told me later.
He told you like immediately after or a few years
No, it wasn't
after?
immediately after. It was actually when I arrived in Tokyo, and he had told me over the phone that was his plan.
Oh my gosh.
Proposed to me.
Were you guys together at that time, or had you broken up?
We were. It was a big fight, and it was obviously a lot of tension because I was about to move overseas, like thousands and thousands of miles away. And so I can't even remember what the fight was about, but I know stress related. And so we tried to keep it going. I mean, in the back of my head, I knew it wasn't going to work. Right? My life was just getting started and my career was about to take off. But we did try to keep it together. He even visited me in Tokyo,
Really?
like, oh yeah, he came and visited, and the guy had never been to Asia, So we made a valiant effort, but I knew that it wasn't going to go anywhere, and it eventually fizzled. But he said many, many, many years later that he always carried a torch for me.
Well, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, that he texted you 20 minutes ago.
I feel, like 25 though, it is such a pivotal point of your life. Like you're really just getting off the ground. So I totally can see why you weren't like dying to get into marriage, right?
I wasn't even close to the idea of it, really. I mean, Julia, at that point, I could see my career starting to develop, and I was on a trajectory. And I was one of those women who was very focused on what I wanted in my career and what sort of sights I had set, on myself to kind of achieve in my career. And so given this opportunity, I mean, can you imagine? I was just so laser focused that I, as a young woman, and I know a lot of young people think this now too, you kind of put everything else to the side thinking you're going to have plenty of time, right? Yeah, I have got plenty of time to get to that. I'm going to focus on this now. And that's the choice I made.
Right. And how long were you guys dating?
I think it was probably about 2 years or so, 2.5 years.
And did you ever play back, like, what if he actually did propose? What would you have said?
I definitely played it back. I would have said no.
Right.
Oh, yeah, you would have said no. Wow.
Yeah, and I knew I would have said no. There's no way I would have said yes.
Wait, were you 25 too?
Yeah. 25 is, it's that quarter life crisis. Same thing. I quit my corporate career. I was living in Manhattan, living with my boyfriend. And he actually did propose New Year's Eve. And my first reaction was, I like literally just felt sick to my stomach. And I said, I'm not ready. And then he tried to propose again the next morning.
Oh,
and
wow.
you left off in Times Square. That could have also been part of it on New Year's Eve.
Oh, yeah. Like amongst all the other puke. And also I drank myself to death that night too. I mean, I was like,
God.
I was obliterated. I couldn't even see him. I couldn't see his face. I was so drunk out of my mind, but all I could see was just like sparkly thing in my face. He kept like just showing this thing. I couldn't even couldn't even make out what
right now. Am I dreaming?
Yeah, like is this a rave or is this a ring? But the next morning, what was really awkward was that his parents called because they knew that he had planned to propose. So they called to congratulate us.
Oh no!
He had to explain to them that he had to send the ring back.
This is like a bad rom-com movie, right?
It was not the rom or the com. It was it was the opposite of any rom com. But I get what you're saying, though. It's at 25, but also I don't know if you felt this way. And Julie, we've talked about this. At 25, you felt like you got everything kind of figured out. I was like, yeah, I got this. Yeah, my career is on this path. I don't need this. I'm gonna get this. Like I felt like I knew what I was gonna do with my life.
Yeah. I mean, I've shared with you, Yue, but like when I was 25, I moved from Boston to San Francisco. So again, it was a similar like quarter life, big change. I think 25, there's something about that you're not like right out of school starting your career and you've been going a few years and you're like, I need something big. Like I need a big change, like to shake it all up. But I know my mindset when it came to relationships, like I was not even thinking about it. Like I literally was establishing a new life for myself. Like I would meet guys and like hook up at like go out to bars and stuff, but dating, like that was not in my repertoire at all.
No.
I mean, I was always a serial monogamous though. So I was never a big dater ever. And I was a late bloomer too, because I sort of grew up your typical Asian kid who was sort of restricted in so many ways by my parents that I didn't even get a chance to even try to date when I was younger. And then I went away to boarding school, and that kind of didn't really allow me to date much because I was like the only Asian girl and these preppy white guys, they didn't like me. So, I mean, I'm just being very frank about it. So it really happened later for me. And, and then when I got to that stage, I was already, thinking about my career. So again, here's the thing I always want to tell younger women is that, you're told you can have it all, but what they don't tell you is you can't have it all at once. Right. So you do have to make choices that sometimes can be very tough. But at 25, you think, oh, I have time. I got all the time in the world. So I can focus on this and I'll get to that and I'll have kids. And my whole thing, and I know a lot of people do this as well, I put goals, like I associated my age with a goal. Right. So I said at the age of 30, I'm going to be a network anchor and I will have found a man and then I'll start thinking about having kids into my 30s. So I set these goals, but life doesn't work that way. I mean, you can't plan things and think they're going to work out, exactly the way that you want.
Well, it sets us up for disappointment too, because I feel like that's like the biggest challenge is your expectations aren't met, because I think I would go on a gamble that the majority of women think the way that you just said. I know I certainly do.
Yeah.
Or did. Yeah. I'm trying to get off of that. But yes, did.
But the question is it timing? Is it life stage? Or is it the guy? Like, let's say that guy was what if there was this notion that guy was perfect for you and he would have moved to Tokyo with you and you started a life there? I mean, is there...
Yeah, no, I mean, who doesn't think about like past relationships in terms of like doing an analysis, right? And I got to tell you guys, I have definitely tried to take inventory, right? From my past relationships, just try and ask myself, the what ifs maybe, but more so like, is it something that I made the right choice, or is it something that, distracted me from something that could have potentially been good. And instead I, was so narrow focused or something, narrow minded. So for instance, this guy, there was nothing wrong with him. There's absolutely, he still is a sweet, sweet guy. And do I think back? Yeah, I probably could have built a good life with him. I mean, but who knows? Right. But if I had made that choice, I'm not sure if I would have done what I've done with my life up to now, in terms of traveled the world and worked at all these different locations, because who's going to want to keep up with that? Right. A very patient person.
True. I feel like you two have a very similar experience.
I know. That's why I told you, Julie, I was like, May's my spirit animal. She really is.
I was like, is this Yue or May's story? I can't even tell right now.
I'm learning so much.
Yeah.
So where were you then at 35? Like, let's go to 35.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let me wind up the clock here. So, okay. So say 28, I joined CNN in Tokyo. Then at 30, I was at CNN in Hong Kong. Then by the age of 35, I joined Oxygen Media, which was the women's network that Oprah Winfrey had launched in 2000. And I was living in Manhattan. And I'm telling you, I felt like Carrie Bradshaw living, the life in New York, very glamorous, and of course, because we were all working for Oprah and Oxygen, it was the most amazing job. I think it was probably the most fun I've had at a job. Sort of the most creative lifestyle I've had. Unfortunately, though, a year later, it was 9/11 and everything changed. So I was there for 9/11. I was covering it. I lost a friend in 9/11. So it was a really weird time, and I was in my mid 30s. And because of that, of course, I was thinking TikTok, my biological clock is ticking.
I thought of the app first. I was like, TikTok existed?
Too. I was like, wait, this is taking a turn. Okay.
When
break out to dance,
when you're unsure about your life, get on TikTok.
Oh my God! No, I haven't gone there, ladies. I think I'm too old for TikTok.
Oh no! We talk about the same thing.
But yeah, so at that time, when you're in your mid 30s, of course, that's when you start really thinking, oh boy, I better start thinking about whether or not I'm going to have a family. And if so, I better find the guy who, is going to be a good father and blah, blah, blah. But I think I still was at that stage where my career I was doing so well. And I hope your listeners and viewers aren't saying now, God, she sounds like a total selfish bitch here.
No.
That wasn't it. I felt so called to be this journalist, and I was living out this really strong purpose. And clearly, after 30 plus years of doing it, I'm still doing it. So I answered the right call for what I was meant to do while on this earth. And so that was such a driving force for me that I think everything else sort of revolved around, that aspect of my life.
Let's hold that thought so we can take a moment for our sponsor. And we want to thank another sponsor, Magic Spoon. I really love that the current trend is all about healthy eating. For one, cutting down on carbs and sugar has been especially difficult for me because I didn't realize there was so much of that in basically everything that I love, particularly in cereal. So when I heard about a magic cereal with 0 sugar, 11 grams of protein, and only 3 net grams of carbs in each serving, I was like, sold. Y'all, this is not magic. This is Magic Spoon, a line of delicious tasting cereal that is almost too good to be true. And it's all keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, low-carb, GMO-free, and frankly, guilt-free. Check out magicspoon.com/dateable to grab a variety pack and try it today. And be sure to use the promo code DATEABLE at checkout to get free shipping. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. That's magicspoon.com/dateable and use the code DATEABLE for free shipping. All right, let's get back to this episode.
I don't think that people are going to think you're selfish at all. I think a lot of people, myself included, can really relate to that. And I think that's why a lot of people are having relationships and settling down and having children later and later, because a lot of people are putting their career first. So I don't think it comes off that way at all.
Okay.
But don't you feel like, I guess when I feel like I'm at the height of my career, that's when I really would like a partner to share that life and share that experience with. I don't know if you two feel that way too.
You know what? I think that's a really, really good point, Yue, because there have been moments in my life where I have reached an extraordinary goal in my career and I'm flying high. And yeah, I do feel like, wow, it sure would be nice to share this euphoria that I have and, this experience that I'm going through, or this incredible interview that I just did with somebody, or the show that I just did. And yeah, I mean, I do feel like that's what a partnership should be, is the sharing of achievement and excitement and joy together. Doing it alone is fine. I've gotten very good at it. But when you can share that excitement with another human being who supports what you're doing and how you're doing it and can share in that, celebration, I mean, then it doubles that feeling of, gratitude.
Yeah, I think I just don't think about it sometimes that way, I guess. Like, especially, I don't know, I'm thinking about even like right this minute, like we're doing a lot of stuff with Dateable. Like I'm very motivated by it, very passionate about it. And I'm currently single. And then sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I have to take the time to like get on dating apps and like make it a priority. I think sometimes when your career is really just like wildly going up and you have a lot happening, it's hard to make that time, especially if you're like traveling or doing appearances. Like I could see how it could go to the sidelines, even if it was something that you wanted very easily.
But ladies, let's talk about this, which has not changed still, is that when men meet a successful woman who is high powered or high profile, they at first say, oh, isn't it great? I'm so attracted to women like that. It's, you know, I think it's great. And then it fizzles because they actually can't handle it. A lot of them, listen, I'm only speaking from my own experience. It has happened many times where at first they claim that they think it's attractive. And then they get a reality check and a dose of what it's really like to be with someone like that. And they're like, no, I'd rather take the wallflower or something. So
yes,
because you're never there, you're doing stuff all the time.
It's an ego thing.
Yeah,
it's an ego thing, right? And I think we still live in a patriarchal society to a certain extent, where women with more power is still unusual.
It's
right?
getting better, but it's definitely still there. Won't say it's like gone forever.
I also think a lot of people want to date the Instagram you and not the real life you. They see the highs only and they think that's very attractive, but they don't know how all the hard work you have to put into behind the scenes.
Right.
Like for us, Dateable takes up a lot of time. That takes away from my time with my boyfriend. I have to be with a partner who understands that, who can also understand the benefits, but also there are certain lows to this industry too that are not pretty, and they have to accept you during that time too.
Yeah, I know. So needle in a haystack.
So 35, were you like dating or were you just not really dating a ton?
No, I actually got into a serious relationship at 35. No, I'm sorry. I got out of a serious relationship with somebody I met in Hong Kong. And this is the guy who absolutely shattered my heart in a million pieces.
Let's hold that thought for a sec. We'll get right back to it. Now, the holidays are the perfect time to get a little bit more glammed up, even if you're attending more virtual parties than past years. Thrive Cosmetics, yes, cosmetics instead of cosmetics, is one of our favorite beauty brands that we discovered this year. Their products are high performance, award-winning, and are both vegan and cruelty-free. The clinically proven formulas highlight your best features and improve your skin over time. Our go-to, and Julie, I know you love this one, is the award-winning mascara called Liquid Lash Extensions.
So good.
And I don't know about anybody else, but I have not been able to get my lash extensions this year because COVID. And this product makes my lashes so long, I've been asked if I'm wearing extensions. This flake-free, smudge-free, and clump-free product has more than 7,000 five-star reviews and won Glamour's Best Clean Beauty Product of 2020 award for the best mascara. And now a lot of their holiday sets include a free tube of this mascara. Plus, for every product you buy, they donate to help a woman thrive. Yes, that's where the cosmetics come from. Start thriving and help women in need today by going to thrivecosmetics.com/dateable for 15% off your first purchase. That's Thrive, CAUSE medics.com/DATEABLE for 15% off. And one more quick announcement from us. Let's face it, it's a weird time to be dating or developing relationships. Have you recently decided that you want to make some changes to your love life? Maybe you've recently re-entered the dating scene. Maybe you've gone on one too many dates that went nowhere. Or maybe you're ready to take your current relationship to the next level. That is exactly why we created the Sounding Board, a true extension of our podcast that delivers a personalized experience, which includes one-on-one coffee dates with us, a monthly Dateable Live after show, exclusive audio content, and much more. Allow Julie and I become your dating Sherpas to provide real-time guidance and wisdom in a more intimate way so we can navigate dating and relationships together. Join the Sounding Board today by going to dateablepodcast.com/sounding board. Again, that's dateablepodcast.com/sounding board. Okay, let's get back into this convo.
This is the watch story that I told you about, Yue.
Yes.
I had told Yue on my show that this guy had bought me a watch when we were dating. He was an American living in Hong Kong like me. And after he shattered my heart in a million pieces, I can say that over and over again. I couldn't even bear the thought of having the watch in my possession. I wasn't even wearing it. I just couldn't even have it in my house. So I took it to a watch store to sell it. And this wise old man talked me out of it. And he comforted me as I was bawling in his store to tell me, it's okay, honey. It's going to get better. Just put it away for as long as you need to. And someday it's not going to hurt anymore. And he was right. It took a couple years, and then I pulled it out one day and I was like, I think I can wear this. And I still have it. So that was the relationship that really broke my heart. It did me some serious damage for many, many years, you guys. And then I moved to New York, and I was dating in New York, actually. And I dated a couple people for, a couple months at a time. But I actually, while I was in New York, no, I didn't actually date anyone long term.
Can I ask why it ended? If you're willing to
I wanna
share.
know.
Yeah. No. I'll tell. I think this will break people's hearts, actually. He wasn't ready, even though we had dated for 3 years. And it was probably the best time I've ever had in a relationship. And, laughed every day. We would go on adventures. I mean, he just made me, very happy every day because of the laughter. That was really important to me. But he wasn't there yet. He still wanted to go on adventures and go climb mountains and be this little boy. So he wasn't at that stage. And so I had to finally call it, because I couldn't hang on much longer, because I was thinking about moving to New York at the time and, was he gonna come? Was he not? And finally I saw that he wasn't going to do it. And so I broke it off, moved to New York. We tried to continue. He wouldn't let go. So he wanted his cake and eat it too. He didn't want to let go, but he didn't want to commit.
I feel like I've heard that story and been in that story so many times.
We've heard the story, right?
Yeah.
But here's the sad part. So I think I was so crushed by this, the loss of this relationship, that for years, you guys, I couldn't release it. I couldn't release it. And then several years later, I found out that he was getting married.
Oh,
and
I hate that. I hate those.
When I got that phone call from my girlfriend, who knew that I was going to be devastated.
Oh my God.
She literally just goes, May, I have something to tell you. And I'm going, what's the matter? I thought she was going to tell me somebody died, right?
Right.
Like it's, and I'll say his name, it doesn't matter, Dana. And she's like, he just got engaged. And I think I dropped the phone. And thank God for girlfriends. They rallied around me that night, took me to a bar, and got me completely shit-faced.
Good for them.
Yeah, no. Thank God for girlfriends.
Oh my God.
Awful moment. But here's the topper. Before he got married, this is long before he met this woman, and this was after we broke up, I was still so heartbroken that I actually, at one point, asked him to marry me.
Oh.
Yeah.
And he said no.
I've never gotten. He said no.
Oh.
What? And what? Okay,
Isn't that
so
amazing?
And did he just say that he wasn't ready?
He said he said, I adore you and I love you, but I don't think I can marry you.
But he wouldn't let it go for so many years too.
Yeah, but I know now, of course. I mean, I figured it out afterwards, and then he got married. And then I actually ended up meeting the woman accidentally after they were married and had a kid.
Oh my God.
And I then understood, it all came together for me. And it's exactly what I was saying to you guys. I think he admired me for all of my achievements and who I was. And at that time I was a big CNN anchor, when he met me in Hong Kong, all of that. But he knew that he didn't want to marry a woman like me, right? He wanted to marry a woman that was more like his mother. And I know that sounds like your stereotypical kind of sort of action that like a lot of men take, but it was true. I knew his mother and his father really well. And she was the sweetest, kindest, loveliest woman who was a wonderful mother. And I know that's what he wanted. And he see that in me in terms of like being the woman who could all of a sudden drop everything and stay home and be maternal and, you know, and a good wife and all of that. So I understood it. It didn't help ease the pain at all, but I eventually understood it.
So you said this was right before you turned 35. How old were you when he got married or like engaged?
I think he got, I must have been then like 38.
So it's like a couple years went by.
I mean, you guys, we dated for 3 years and then it was probably, I'm not kidding. It was probably another 7 years where I still harbored feelings for him.
I've been there. I totally get it.
I was dating other people, but he was like the standard. And that's not a healthy thing, right? Because you're always comparing. But I suffered for a while.
That's like where I was at 35, I feel like.
Really?
Yeah. I feel like at 35, I like said goodbye to that like heart-wrenching breakup. Like it was over, I think it was like a couple years or a year before that, I was in therapy. Like I was not dating at all. And then of course, like as I'm trying to get over it, he comes back into the picture to like give it another try and all the stuff has changed. So I remember it was like right before, like basically right before my 35th birthday. I remember he was like, I can't do this again. Like I can't commit, even though he was the one that came back and all this. And at that point, like it broke me again. But then in 35, I remember like I was actually doing really well after that. I remember I was like my healthiest I've ever been. Like I was just like very fit, like eating really healthy. So I was just like feeling good overall. And then I ended up meeting someone really great after that. And I think finally like releasing him actually helped with that. But then, of course, you people on the podcast have heard this, but into that relationship, my newer boyfriend lost his visa and had to go back to the UK. So it was unfortunate in 35, but I think I was able to like see someone else in the picture again. So that was like a benefit for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I always think that whenever I was down about, that not working out, eventually I got to the place where, at least I feel like I have really felt deep love for somebody.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's how I felt.
And so I do now look back on it very fondly. And girls, you're lucky, man. This story that I just told you about proposing, not a whole hell of a lot of people know this story. In fact, well, now more people are going to know it. But in fact, I wrote a book. I was asked to write a book many years ago in 2008. And they wanted me to write about my career and all that stuff. And so the publisher assigns you an editor that will work with you, just to make sure that everything's okay. And this woman was great. She was a very good editor. And so I actually had put in my manuscript that story.
Oh my gosh.
Proposing. And she says to me, she's like, May, I don't think you need to put this in the book.
Interesting.
What? Why?
Yep. She's like, I think this is a little bit too much. It's a little too personal. Are you sure you want to put it in the book? And I'm grateful that she told me that because it was I think I was still processing it.
Right. And now, years later.
It's healthy for me to put it in the book at that time.
Right. For sure.
Yeah. And so it was good advice on her part because I'm so glad I didn't. Now I can talk about it and it's no big deal.
Right. When you're too in it, it's hard.
Yeah.
Yue, where were you at 35? Was that when you moved to SF?
Gosh, a little bit after I moved to SF. I don't know. At 35, I just remember having a moment of like, this is not where I expected myself to be at 35.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
I guess we can rewind back to when we were 25. At 25, I thought, by 35, I'll definitely be married with kids. It comes with a package. And then at 35, I'm sitting in my studio in San Francisco and looking out the window and thinking, I'm 35. This is not where I thought I'd be. And not that I wasn't okay with it. It was just kind of like this wake-up call. Like, well, what should I be doing right now?
Yeah.
I was feeling just a tad bit lost. But I guess for those 10 years between 25, 35, my life was so defined by the men in my life. I didn't feel like I was a liberated, independent woman. I felt like each every couple years there would be some guy that I was clinging on to, and my identity was somehow linked to him. Because when I look back from 25 to 35, it was like, instead of milestones, they're guys. You know, it was the era of this guy and the era of this guy. But I think at 35 was when I really liberated myself from identifying with someone else.
Interesting. I remember at 35, I was dreading that birthday so much for the same reason that, like you said, like I wasn't where I was going to be. I think 30, there was this expectation like, oh, now I'll finally have a relationship and all of that. And then, like I mentioned, I actually did meet someone that I thought was going to be that person. And then it didn't end up working out. So like I think we broke up when I was like 32-ish. And then like 33, I went through like this, like, you know, just hellish year of not being over him, but not being with him at the same time. And I remember when 35 rolled around, I was just like, where did the last couple years go? Because I wasn't like actively dating in that time. And I remember going to Vegas with a couple of friends because I'm like, I need to like take my mind off of this. And I remember at midnight on my 35th birthday, I got an email from like an insurance carrier being like, we've increased you to the next bucket. Like, so your premium has gone up. I'm like, they couldn't freaking wait till like, you know, the next day or something.
What the hell?
Oh man, that's rude.
Rude. I was so sued.
And I was like, oh, someone texted me. Oh, nope, it's the insurance carrier.
Insurance company. That's a rom-com right there. But isn't it okay? So May, when you talked about these two circumstances when you were 25, 35, they're still very much based around the idea of marriage, right? If you think about it, right? So like both of these conflicts, I guess in a way, are based on the outcome of marriage.
Right.
So at what point did you remove marriage out of the equation?
Oh, that came much later. I mean, because I think I was still in your 30s, you're still thinking marriage is possible and kids, right? Because that's like physically still possible. Let's get down to it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was always something that was, you know, here's the thing. And I'm glad we're talking about this because I think women, we're still programmed, right, by society to think that marriage and children are still something we're supposed to do. Right?
Absolutely.
And if we don't do it, what do you mean you're not married and you've never been married? What do you mean you don't have kids? Did you not want them? I mean, you know, you're always questioned about that decision, as if it's like such a mistake to do that because it's our job. You know, it's we've been appointed as women to have children and get married. So I think I was programmed certainly to think that way. And I just assumed it would happen. So anytime I was in a serious relationship, of course I'm going to think, oh, you know, could this be the guy that I'm going to finally marry? Right. Now with the guy who broke my heart, I mean, I really did want to be with him. But clearly, you know, it didn't work out. So so I think that was always part of the thinking for me. Again, because of the programming, and not saying that I didn't want it too. I think I wanted it. The kid thing, I think I was putting that off because I knew that if I had children, I could not have the career that I was having, right?
No,
or else it was going to be very challenging. Yeah.
Yep.
So that was a more conscious decision on my part saying, okay, I'm going to put that off for as long as I can. So when did this all dissipate? So I have one more almost getting married story, which was at the age of 40. And at the age of 40, I know exactly why I was thinking I was going to get married because I was turning 40. It was not because I thought this was the right guy.
Oh,
He
interesting.
was not the right guy. It was not because I loved him more than anything in the world. I did not love him that much. So this was a absolute lesson in trying to shove a square peg into a round hole because it was time. Because I was thinking, oh my God, I'm turning 40. And if I don't do it now, it's never going to happen. And I still felt like I had that tiny window of having a kid if I wanted to. You know, it was slipping away pretty quickly, but I still had that window maybe. So I was trying to force this. And lo and behold, 3 days before we're about to leave Singapore, this is a guy I met in Singapore, Australian, mistake. I couldn't explain it, but 3 days before we were about to leave to come visit my parents in LA for him to ask them for my hand in marriage, he breaks up with me. Yes.
So did he know, like, did he get the sixth sense that you weren't fully into it? Like, what was the reason?
I think it was a combination of probably getting some feeling from me, but also he was a cheater.
Oh, okay.
I didn't have any total proof, but I knew he was cheating. And also, I think he saw the writing on the wall in terms of me being this independent, strong-minded woman. And I think he just was like, yeah, I don't want to do this. So, but he waited until the last minute. And that's what really pissed me off, was that it not just affected me. I think I was more hurt by the fact that he was hurting my family.
Yeah, no kidding.
Parents had prepared the house. They planted flowers. I mean, my mom's an artist, so she painted this portrait from a photo of the two of us.
Oh my gosh.
Waiting in his room.
Oh my God. They were probably so excited too that this was like happening and like all this.
Yeah, they were. And so that happened. And I think I was angrier about the pain that he had caused my parents more than me.
Wow. Yeah.
But ladies, I'm not just saying this. Thank the Lord that happened, because
you dodged a bullet.
Holy shit, I dodged a bullet.
I mean, we've seen that. We've definitely seen people do like the mad scramble when they get into their like late 30s. I think people handle it differently. I feel like there's some people, I think I'm kind of on the first boat of the sense of, or the second boat. The first boat, I guess, is the mad scramble. I think the second boat is kind of like what you said, UA, too. It's like you kind of get a little at peace with it a little more. So I see people going in both directions, like one to just get it done before a certain time, or being like more at ease with like easing up the timelines.
Right. So, yeah.
And it's not just us. It's like our friends and family, society.
Oh, yeah.
And my mom said to me last night, she said, if you and your boyfriend aren't going to have kids, let's find you a donor. Let's just get you a kid somewhere. Let's find a handsome donor. Literally, that's what she said. And she's like, you don't have much time. We got to do this.
Yeah.
And I really felt like I was in some sort of like a prank or something. Like, really? You just want me to have kid with some random dude? Yeah, just do it. But speaking of this pressure, we have a lot of listeners who write in and say that they feel this pressure to couple up and settle down, especially during this time. They feel like their time has paused. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we talked about this on your show too, May. Yes. Yes. What do you think is, I mean, you've come out of this and you've navigated your way out of this and you've done just fine. So what would be some advice from you to anybody who feels that time crunch?
Yeah, I mean, you can't feel the pressure just because of time. You have to think about yourself in terms of what is it in your life that you really want and it's going to be lasting, right? I think we live in such a temporary society now where it's instant gratification, thinking something or someone or some object is going to make you happy, but then it's fleeting, right? Mm-hmm. So, I really try to tell younger people, it's like, listen, you have to try to get to know yourself much better than you probably do. And of course, that comes with time and wisdom and more experience and age. But you really need to ask yourself, okay, just because society says this is the way it's supposed to be done, doesn't mean it's necessarily for you. Mm-hmm. And society keeps evolving and changing, like as we see, all the time. And there's this now change in the dynamics of men and male roles and female roles. There's this I really think there's this pivotal change that's taking place overall.
Absolutely.
In terms of family. What does family mean? What does it look like? Mm-hmm. What's a relationship now? I mean, it certainly doesn't necessarily mean marriage. It could be just, partnership, cohabitation. Some people don't even live, some people are married and they don't even live in the same place.
Right.
I don't think it's such a bad idea.
You know what, though? It's interesting because I feel like one of our most popular episodes last season was relationship. Are you sure you want one? And I think a lot of people are questioning it. And I feel like even myself, I'm like, do I want a relationship, or is it because like society tells me I should want one? Right. And I think though one of the fears that I remember talking to a therapist about is that you're going to be left behind. So let's say you decide that this isn't the path for you, But all like in your 20s and 30s, that's totally fine because there's more than enough people to do stuff with, and you have like alternative lives. You're not like some like spinster sitting at home with your cats, right? But like there's a story that's played out that like in your 30s and 40s and 50s, and people have their own lives more, like people that took the more traditional path and had kids and all that. Like, what has been your experience? Like, do you feel like that's a stereotype that holds up, or have you been able to like have that like same vibrant life that you had in your 20s and 30s?
I mean, I'm a little unusual, but at the same time, I'll say this, and maybe I'm unusual even with my circle of friends. I literally have so many single girlfriends who, like me, have never been married and no children. They have vibrant careers. They have vibrant lives. They're very active, travel all over the place. And they also feel the same way as I do in terms of, you know, we've made these choices and we're happy with these choices. There are ups and downs, but there's ups and downs with no matter what situation you're in. I have married friends who are, some of them blissfully happy, others so miserable. Living in hell, and have children who, you know, are getting into trouble and all of that. So, you know, grass is always greener, of course, but I mean, I feel very blessed. I really do feel like I've lived the lifetimes of probably 3 people already.
That's amazing. That's wonderful to hear.
You know, the character from Titanic, Rose, right? And you know how she was supposed to get married to this guy who was very controlling, blah, 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 but then she falls in love with, what was his name?
Jack.
And then, you know, you see the course of her life where she became like, she was traveling and she was going on adventures, and you see all the photos of her life. And I remember watching that, and then later on thinking about, you know, that movie and that particular character. And I'm like, that's kind of how I feel with what I've done. I've decided to take the road of being more independent, more adventurous, and really try to live life fully and just see where it takes me. And yes, there are moments, you guys, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Of course, there are still moments where I think about, yeah, you know, it would have been nice to have a kid. You know, I think I would have made a really awesome mom, but it didn't happen that way. So I better use my life in the way that I'm meant to, whatever purpose that is. And right now, I'm an adjunct professor at USC, so I teach young people. So that's totally gratifying. And then I do the show. And so, you know, I feel like I have shaped a life, you know, is fitting for who I am.
I'm so glad to hear that. I mean, I think it's one of those things too that it makes so much sense. And especially in today's society, like people are getting divorced more. Even if you get married, it's not a guarantee that that's going to be your life for the long run. So, and yeah, like I love the grass is greener is totally true too. It's like you always kind of always want what you can't have.
And also, listen, you guys, I mean, social media has really messed things up for all of us, you know, so people put up this front of showing that their life is so perfect, and look at this perfect house and this perfect vacation and our perfect children and my perfect husband and all it's all smoke and mirrors. So that's really messed up the psyche of a lot of people. And I think a lot of young women and girls are being programmed in a negative way that way too. So yeah, I mean that worries me when I continuously see that on social media.
Totally. Well, there's this book by Eric Kleinenberg, who is is like a sociologist, and he was actually one of the co-authors of Modern Romance with Aziz Ansari. And he put out a new book recently about just like this phenomenon of more people living alone. And he really like studied it as like a big cultural shift of what's been happening. And I think one of the findings that he mentioned is like people have this perception that if you're alone, you're lonely, you're not doing anything. But people that he like talked to had like the most vibrant social lives out of anyone, like even more than their married counterparts. Like they were more active in their communities. They were more active, like going to restaurants and like different more social engagements like within their communities too. So it's one of those things. there's stereotypes, but they're not always accurate.
No, I think we're breaking those stereotypes for sure. As women certainly are, because look, let's be real. I mean, women have evolved much quicker than men, because we've had to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because our roles have changed and we've obviously gained a lot more independence and a lot more rights. And the equality issue is still, we're working on it, and pay parity, all that stuff. But still, the advancements have been pretty drastic. And so because of that, women are kind of growing into our own skin in a much better way. And so because of that newfound independence and that freedom, I think women are a lot more curious and more adventurous to want to see like where our lives can take us, with or without a partner. And so the loneliness thing, we all get lonely. Come on, that's sure,
Right.
So who doesn't get lonely on occasion, right? I know, again, people who are in relationships and they are the loneliest people I know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? They always say like, there's nothing worse than being in a relationship and feeling lonely.
Absolutely.
So
that is the worst, absolutely worst feeling.
The worst feeling.
Why is it so like single means lonely? I hate that is like a stereotype.
Yeah. Because it's the physical aspect of like you're alone physically, but it's all about what's inside you and what you do with your time and your life.
What I struggle with is this, though, what we said at the top of this episode, which is you can't have it. You can have it all, but not all at the same time. And I see that absolutely with a lot of these celebrities like Will and Jada Pinkett Smith. For years, you had this image that they were this perfect family, their perfect careers, perfect kids. And then you hear about what goes on behind closed doors when she's sleeping with her son's best friend. So that's a whole other story. But then my question is, does that mean that when we have something going for us, we need to sacrifice something else? Is that the reality then?
Well, okay. So I have talked to a lot of high-powered women in my time as a journalist. And then, I just meet these people because of what I do and the events that I go to. And it's very rare if they're speaking truthfully, it's very rare for them to say, oh yeah, I've never had to sacrifice anything. Mm-hmm. They will always say they had to sacrifice something, and they always have guilt. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Women have tremendous guilt, and it's unfair. It's not fair. I know life isn't fair, but for some reason, maybe it's in our DNA, it's, the way we're made up as women. But we have such guilt when we have to make a sacrifice. And so therefore, I think psychologically, it's even harder for women to try to juggle so many things, in their lives. And so they end up being, totally stressed out, kind of feeling like they're not living their lives fully, either as a career woman or a mother or a wife or a friend, because they can't do everything 100%. And that's just the reality. So I think the most successful women that I've talked to who have been able to handle it, they say, I just prioritize. I know that something has to be sacrificed. Yep. So therefore, I have to truly ask myself, what's most important to me? And it goes back to knowing yourself, right? You got to know what your values are, truly what your values are and what's going to be lasting. And I think that really takes time. To develop that, because, what my values and what I thought I wanted in my life in my 20s are totally different.
Yeah, for sure.
Are you kidding? Now I don't give a shit about half the stuff that I care about.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And ladies, just all of you out there, your 50s, do not dread them. I'm telling you, the 50s rock. Why? You do not give a shit about anything or what anybody thinks about you. You do not care.
I love that. And also, I
Great
feel
feeling.
like it was one of those things that everyone was dreading their 20s. Then they were dreading their 30s. Then they were dreading their 40s. And then every year it's be like, 40's the new 30. Like everything just keeps shifting. So,
yeah. But I think now it actually is something very real, because you are seeing that even with the celebrities, it's being celebrated now because it's the combination of the wisdom. Now we're actually respecting the wisdom and the experience. And obviously people are taking better care of themselves. So they're looking really great too, So I think that's a great change that's taking place where older women especially are being more respected and are being seen as beautiful and, not disposable like they were before. I mean, look at J-Lo, for crying out loud.
Seriously.
What does she do? I want to know what she does.
I mean, don't you wish that we were back in simpler times when all women were stacked up against were just their looks?
No,
and
no,
nothing else.
I don't want to wish that.
No. I wish that it was just simpler times where we just had one thing that all we need is just that one thing to worry about. Now it's like, this is what the narrative I always hear. She looks amazing for her age, and she has kids, and she has a career, and she has a family. But you never hear that about men. Like, nobody's looking at George Clooney being like, oh, he looks amazing for his career, and he's a dad, and he's a great husband, right? It's like women just one thing isn't enough anymore. Like, you have to be all these things, and men dad bod is so celebrated in this culture. I still don't understand why, right? We're like, yeah, he has a dad bod, go dad bod. But then we're like, J-Lo, she's 50 and she looks like she's 25. Plus she has a thriving career.
I'm sure who's pushing that dad bod narrative and doing the marketing behind pushing that idea. It's
Seriously.
the men. Because then they can get away with having dad bods.
Yeah. So women just need to move into marketing more.
Yeah, we just need to control
higher
the
level
money.
marketing. It's true, though. I think there is this narrative now that we can have it all and we should have it all. And I agree with you, though. It's like, how do you prioritize? Like, and especially, I think it's the part I question. It's like right now, and you actually touched on this, May. It's like right now I have my priorities. And to be honest, I don't know if I want children, but I fear that like in a couple years, I'll regret that decision. Like, how do you make peace with being in the moment opposed to always having to look in the future or the past?
Yeah, I think I was a victim for many years about always looking ahead, like never stopping just to enjoy the moment. I was always like, okay, what's next? Okay, what job am I going to get next? Okay, where am I going to go next? And that is my one regret, actually. I don't have a lot of regrets in life. I don't believe in them because what are you going to do about it? But I will say, if I have to think about something I wish I could have done less of or changed, I would have done much less of that. Of always just looking ahead and always, worrying about like, okay, what am I going to do now? Because you can't control the future. You certainly can't change the past, right? So you got to make do and do what's right now, and figure shit out as you go along, because all the planning in the world could just completely get tossed out the window. That's why the John Lennon line from his song Beautiful Boy is one of my favorite quotes. It's, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans.
Yeah. Love it.
And that's exactly right. And so I have definitely come at peace with that whole notion now, but I'm 54. It took a while. So even in my 40s, I was still trying to control, the future and the direction in a way that I think was somehow restrictive without me even knowing it.
So I think part of it is because there's like a fear. Like, I think this is something I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but I feel like you hear this narrative, the older you get, the more difficult dating gets because there's a smaller pool and all of that.
Scarcity.
It's scarcity mindset. And I feel like if you're already like feeling like it's difficult, there's just like tons of pressure and all of that. Like, I guess from your experience, like, have you experienced that? Like, do you think the dating pool is different in your 50s as it was in your 40s or your 30s?
Oh, totally. Oh my God. No, I mean, okay, I'll give you the nitty gritty. So, in your 50s, even in your 40s. Cause I've tried online dating on and off, different platforms. The only one that I haven't, well, there's a couple I haven't tried, but I've never done Tinder. I have no interest in doing Tinder just because of the reputation it has. So, but what happens is there's ageism.
Yep.
There's just downright ageism. It doesn't matter because online dating and the apps, it allows you to control your settings, right? So age is one of them. So most guys, even guys who are in their 50s, their maximum age that they're going to put on to find a woman is going to be like 39 or something.
Yeah, or 35, right?
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to boast for 1 second. I look better than most 35-year-old women. Okay.
No
but
kidding.
I'm never going to cross their,
Right.
their own because of my age. So of course the pool is going to be smaller for me because I'm not even given a chance to meet some of these people. So that makes it hard. But here's the thing. I have gotten to a stage where I'm selective too, because at 54, do you think I'm just going to date anyone?
Anybody? Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, I have better things to do. Seriously. Yes, there are moments where I'm like, oh yeah, it would be nice if somebody could take me out to dinner, but nobody's doing that right now. So it doesn't matter. But overall, I think, well, it better be worth it. It better be worth my time. It better really be something that I enjoy and we enjoy together, the person whoever I'm dating. Or else what's the why? Why would I do that? I don't need to get married for financial reasons. I'm not getting married, to have a baby. So a relationship to me now is much more meaningful. And it's got to bring some sort of enhancement to my life as well as that other person. I don't need to be completed. I don't need to complete somebody else. That Jerry Maguire line sucks ass.
Yeah.
So
I'm already complete. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. I would love enhancement though, and then opportunity to share, and have a connection. So if that's not there, then I'm not going to just do it out of desperation.
Do you find that also the men that you attract are different now in your 50s? I'm just going to take a stab here. I'm going to guess that you attract a lot of what we call tater tots, young men who are just like little snacks. They may not be good for you long term, but they're good to snack on every once in a while. I'm going to guess there are a lot of young men after you.
I love the fact that you have all these terms. I'm learning all these terms from you guys. It's so fun. Tater tots. Yeah. Well, okay. So from my online dating experiences, yes, there are definitely guys in their 30s who, are attracted. And I don't know if it's because they're looking for a sugar mama or, whatever. I don't know. And so for me, I'm definitely not one to take the bait. Yeah. I've never been somebody who has been attracted to really younger men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you meeting people more like I guess pre-COVID, since COVID is hard to do this, like were you mostly using apps or were you mostly meeting like people out and about? Like what's...
Okay. So if I had $1 for every time I said, I am never going to do online dating again, ever. I'm off.
You'd be so rich.
Very rich right now. But pre-COVID, I had done that again. I was like, I'm done. I'm so done. Unless I meet somebody organically, forget it. And I swore it off again. I got set up by somebody back in early February. And it was a setup. And I was like, oh my God, when does that ever happen anymore? I never get set up.
Yeah, so rare.
And so I got set up, went out with this guy, very beginning of February, and we hit it off like a house on fire.
Amazing.
Like, immediately. So we started dating and I really was smitten. He was, age appropriate. We're like 1 year apart, divorced, has a 14-year-old, so, definitely like secure or whatever, or so I thought. And he just said, I have no vision. I have no vision for what I want. And he just kind of ghosted me during COVID. So that was not, I mean, I have one of those COVID stories of somebody sort of like not being sensitive to what everyone's going through and,
So people ghost at 50 as well?
Unfortunately, honey, they do.
I mean, we talked to someone at 70 that got ghosted.
That's true. That's true. But see, at 70, you don't know if they ghosted or
they don't.
Or they really ghosted.
Oh, yeah.
Well, COVID's the same.
Yeah, I don't think that changes with age. I think people are still, Julie, you mentioned fear a little while ago. And I think fear is at the heart of a lot of behavior.
Yes.
Right. So you act fearfully. Because of fear, you act out of desperation. Because of fear, you ghost somebody because it's too emotional. It's getting too intimate. So fear definitely prevents people from being true to themselves. Honestly. And if even in your 50s, if they're not aware of themselves and have that self-awareness about who they are, what they want, they're going to be exactly the same as a 30-year-old.
Totally. Well, it's a good segue to takeaways, because I feel like fear is definitely one that I'm gathering from this too. Because like even some of the stereotypes that I asked you, or we asked in this, like that's coming from just what society tells you to be scared about. It's not coming from anyone you know or any truth. And I know like even during quarantine, I remember like when I was first alone, like living alone, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be terrible. Like I'm going to be so lonely. And I've not felt that at all. And I think it's like at the end of the day too, there's this fear of like ending up by yourself. Like that is the worst thing that could possibly happen. Like you were spoon fed this from a very early age. And I've been thinking over this quarantine too. I'm like, if this is what it is, it's not that bad. Like, I'm doing okay. Like, I like, as long as like you can find things that fuel yourselves. Like I know there's people that are equally by themselves or even in relationships that are struggling or having different ways of dealing with like this time. And I think it's just like, how do you build a life that you're passionate about? And that doesn't necessarily, like, it could be the traditional path of having a family. Not saying it can't be, but it also can be many other things. And I think that's really like the takeaway with all this is that nothing anymore is one singular route. And like, especially us, like coming from like an age of divorce, we've seen that that is not necessarily the solution to happiness. And I think that's what's making it just like more accepted that people are just on their own paths and living life. And each generation becomes the new 20, the new 30. And I think that's great. I'm glad that we're hearing like living proof of that.
Oh, no, I think it's a continuous evolution. And it's an expansion of the definition of what life and family and relationships are supposed to be about. It's not this one small box, right? It's now like multiple boxes. Actually, the box is being kind of blown open and you can define what it is that you want in your life and what you want your life to look like. And hey, it can change.
Right.
And don't think that just because it's this way now, it's not going to change in the next decade. Because that's kind of what happened with me. You know, each decade, something different happened with the relationship or my career or where I lived. And I kind of just went with it. Right. And I made choices, some very conscious choices and just some very organic, choices that just happened. Right. So that's the difference. I think that's why I think quarantine has been good. I hope. That it made people just stop and really look at themselves and ask themselves some tough, serious questions, about what they want, who they are, what they care about, and how they want to spend their time.
Well, I think it's all about mindset. And you said this earlier, like you realize that you were not on the path of family and children, and you can choose to be upset and look at yourself like, like there's something wrong with you, or you can choose to live the life that you're meant to live. And I think it's all goes back to that. Like you can be scared of like what's happening in the future. You can be scared that you're not going to like have, the dating pool is going to shrink or all that. But the reality is no one knows what's in store for them in life.
Right. Listen, I have aunts who are traditional Korean women, all married with children and, their kids have children and everything like that. And then my mother too, she's 84. And now they're all saying to me and my mom, oh, May is so much better off with her life. She has the most amazing life.
Grass is always greener.
Exactly. And in Korea, the new trend in Korea is that women are staying single. They're going to eat, by themselves. They're going traveling by themselves. They're not getting married because they don't want to. So this is happening around the world. This is an evolution of females and redefining family and, how one chooses to live their life.
That's fascinating. I think, it just goes into what I'm taking away from this whole conversation is this idea of like not planning too far ahead and accepting where you are today And I agree with you, May. I think quarantine has been really good for that, because whatever plans you made in 2020, guess what? You can just rip that piece of paper up, because that's not going to happen. But it's been really freeing for me to think now, marinating in the present and feeling my feelings right now, and not having to try to multitask to move my life forward in some way. And I've heard this actually from a lot of people. My mom and I have this conversation all the time. Why can't women be happy?
Right.
Because we always want more.
Yeah.
We're always like, what's next?
Yep.
What's the next step? How do I make this better? How do we get to that next level? Why can't we just freaking chill? Because we already put so much pressure on ourselves as is. We just got to chill, which goes into my next takeaway, which is like, I think after this conversation, it's not so much about sacrifice when it comes to having it all. It's reprioritizing.
Yes.
And that reprioritization probably happens on a daily basis, I think, right? And it's okay. I mean, I've had days where I try to crush it at everything and I end up not crushing anything. I just end up crushing myself.
Right.
So finding that one thing that takes precedence today and might not tomorrow, I'm going to crush that, and everything else I'm going to try to just deprioritize, and giving us a space to just say that is okay to do. That is also liberating for women. But I do want to pose this the scenario, and this is just for future discussion, which is if more women are choosing to stay single, that means many men will have to stay single involuntarily, right? I mean, that's just how it works. So for a lot of the men out there, I think women have already gone on this journey of what it's like to be alone and single. And we, it's like, it's okay for us to be on this journey now. We've been talking about it for so long. But for men, I think for a lot of you who are listening, now's the time to think about this journey too, because your time is coming. Women have been talking to each other about this for so long, but for men, I know a lot of my male friends have a really hard time being alone.
Yes.
Much harder time than some of my girlfriends.
Being alone, even no matter your relationship status, I think it is healthy to learn how to be alone. Because at the end of the day, I mean, even if you're married for your entire life, someone's going to die first. Like, they're going to be alone at some point of your life, potentially. And I mean, if you look at just like, so many of our listeners are coming into the coming back into the dating scene in their 40s, in their 50s, in their 60s. Like, nothing is like 100% always the way it's going to stay. Like, there's going to be periods that you could be alone. So I think being comfortable being alone is probably the one of the best things I know for myself, and I put a priority on that, is to like just learn to be comfortable, like taking trips by yourself, just being happy in your own presence. Like, I know personally that has really made this quarantine a lot easier than if I didn't do that work.
Yeah. Yeah. But they always say that, I know statistically men, when they get divorced, they want to immediately get back into a relationship. Women, when they get divorced, they kind of want to be like, whoa, I want to be alone,
Yeah. Well, it's also women initiate more divorces.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. So, but yeah, and I think for men who are listening, you guys, get in touch with yourselves a little bit. And I don't mean that way. I don't mean that way. I mean,
maybe during quarantine. Yeah.
I'm sure you're already doing that. But I just find like men, I wish they would do more self-reflection and self-assessment, because I think, again, the natural tendency for men is to hide their feelings, stuff their emotions, whatever, and not really talk to anyone. Yes. That's where we're lucky as women. We have our female friends and we'll talk to anybody about that. So that's a way of releasing and getting that, consoling advice from somebody. But with men, I do feel sorry for them sometimes. There are some men who are very evolved and they are open, but oftentimes they still have that masculinity kind of thing, that hang up. And so therefore, I feel like they're not evolving as quickly as women are. And so I wonder if there's this paradigm shift taking place where the gap is going to keep getting wider and wider between men and women.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that is going on also is that like there is this redefinition of masculinity that's happening. So I think that is actually going to help men in this that they can, I think for so many years it was seen as a weakness that you could show emotion. And now it's being like, no, it's okay. Like what women evolved and had that liberation. I think men are starting to see that now. So I'm hopeful that we won't go to the huge gap and that we'll actually start to come more together and more have like healthier, feelings of being alone and all that.
And absolutely, we've been having these conversations separately. If we're going to talk about masculinity, include women in the conversation. If we're going to talk about feminism, include men in the conversation too. This is why we can't only have our girlfriends to tell us, what do you think the guy's thinking? Like, how would our girlfriends know any better than we would? So I think it just shows that we need to come together and have these conversations.
Yue, that's a very good point, because I think oftentimes when women are going through an issue with a man, we go to our girlfriends. And of course, our girlfriends can be like, girl, he sucks. He's, oh my God, he's such a jerk. Well, that's fine, because sometimes you need that. But I do think, even at my age, I do think, man, I would really love to get a different side of this.
Join our Facebook group. That's our shameless plug for the Facebook group. But I feel like that has been, honestly, one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen. Like, we have a community of men and women, and everyone is just so supportive of each other. You see the different perspectives. And I think when you get into communities where it's just one sex, it's really detrimental of your viewpoint.
For sure. Oh, yeah, that's good to know.
Invite you. You're going to join our Facebook group, whether you like it or not. One last question for you, May, before we let you go. What does being dateable mean to you?
Oh, wow. Okay. What's being dateable? What does that mean to me? It means, I think being dateable means being open and being honest, being authentic. I think that's something that makes someone dateable. And if you are willing to open up and be really genuine in who you are, what you're about, what your values are, then I think connection would be so much easier to make sooner than later, without all this other superficiality and bullshit that people get mired in. So that's what dateable means to me.
Love it. And if people want to stalk you, where should they go? Don't say your home address.
Especially those little, what did you call them? Tater tots?
Tater tots.
Yeah, get those tater tots in.
They can certainly tune into the Mei Lee Show, which is on YouTube on the Mei Lee Show channel. Please subscribe if you can. And then on Instagram, the Mei Lee Show, and Twitter and Facebook. We're on all those different platforms, and we have a lot of fun. Yue, our show has gotten a lot of play already. Lots of
comments. Oh man,
I love it.
I can't wait.
We'll have to share that with our audience too, but that's amazing. So if you guys want to check out Yue on the Mei Lee Show,
we had a really good time, and we plucked a couple of clips to tease the show, and one of them was when we were talking about that other term of yours.
Oh yes, Julie's. It's actually Julie's favorite term. Can you guess, Julie, what that term is?
Fuckboys?
Yeah.
So use that clip, and all these people are commenting on it. It's great.
That's Julie.
I love that. You're the face of fuckboys.
Julie is the fuckboy slayer.
That's my dude.
Yeah, that's her new tagline. So just so you know.
But you are the face of fuckboys right now. So
I hope I'm not the face of fuckboys.
I know, right?
That defeats the whole purpose. But yes. Okay, so everybody check out.
You're responsible for that term. Well, it's
apparently love talking about fuckboys. I've realized. I think I just like the name. There's something. Well,
guess what one of my viewers said when she saw that clip? She's like, "Oh no, they're still online. They're still there, and they're still playing the game."
Oh, they are. Yeah, they are. It's just easier to spot them now.
Yeah,
that's true.
You just don't fuck with the fuckboys. That's it.
Right.
Exactly.
On that note, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you so much, May, for, we needed this discussion so much. I needed to hear this. Julie and I have had so many conversations about this, but everybody, there is such a huge difference between your mindset and where you physically are right now, which could be alone, but doesn't mean that it has to make you feel a certain way, because you are still the same person. It really doesn't.
Right. Live in the present.
It doesn't place a value on who you are, whether you're alone or not.
Value yourself. Yeah. Learn to value yourself. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Okay. And don't forget, if you love us, if you love May, if you love both of us, give us a rating in Apple Podcasts, 5 stars. We'll take that. But if, just be honest, but we always love 5-star ratings. And if you have time for a quick comment, we truly value that, because the more ratings we get, the better guests we get. And so we get guests like May back on their show. And because now she knows we're legit.
I'll definitely come back.
Awesome.
And we'll wrap this up.
Stay dateable.
The Dateable Podcast is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts. Want to continue the conversation? First, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter with the handle @DateablePodcast. Tag us in any post with the hashtag StayDateable, and trust us, we look at all those posts. Then head over to our website, dateablepodcast.com. There you'll find all the episodes, as well as articles, videos, and our coaching service with vetted industry experts. You can also find our premium Why series, where we dissect, analyze, and offer solutions to some of the most common dating conundrums. We're also downloadable for free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Overcast, Stitcher Radio, and other podcast platforms. Your feedback is valuable to us, so don't forget to leave us a review. And most importantly, remember to stay dateable.